The Play Absolutely podcast with Dr. Sue Jennings and Dr. Andy Hickson.
Hello and welcome. Episode 10 of the Play Absolutely podcast. I say episode 10. Please don't get confused, people. I think in the last episode, I also called that episode 10, and I did a long spiel about podcasts, not many podcasts lasting 10 episodes, but we're in episode 10 now. How are you doing, Sue?
Okay, fine. So we're in episode 10, yes?
This
Great.
is episode
Well,
10.
before we get into any topics, I want to read something. And that's
Okay.
a quote from William Shakespeare 400 years ago, because it illustrates for me very well the whole theme of play and playfulness during pregnancy. But this is a conversation between Titania, Queen of the Fairies, and Oberon, the king, and they've just been having an argument. Oberon says, "I do but beg a little changeling boy to be my henchman." And she replies, "Set your heart at rest. The fairy land buys not the child of me. His mother was a votaress of my order, and in the spiced Indian air by night, full often hath she gossiped by my side, and sat with me on Neptune's yellow sands, marking the embarked traders on the flood, when we have laughed to see the sails conceive and grow big-bellied with the wanton wind, which she with pretty and with swimming gait following, her womb then rich with my young squire, would imitate and sail upon the land to fetch me trifles and return again."
Wow.
So
I love a bit of
Titania very
Shakespeare.
much is talking about big playful, how her pregnant friend and the way she walked along the seashore was imitating what looked like the pregnant sails of the trading boats made pregnant by the wind.
Yeah, because when they billow out, they look pregnant, don't they?
I think this is just a lovely image,
Mm.
and it takes me straight into this idea of the importance of pregnancy play.
Pregnancy play. Okay. Tell us more.
Play starts before we're born.
Tell us. Talk about it. How does that work?
Well, I think it first begins when we're aware of the conception that actually a baby is growing, and we react to it. And often people will prod and press and, how do I know I'm pregnant, and so on. But slowly that interaction will grow, and women will start rocking without being aware that they're rocking. They'll begin telling stories to their unborn child. Dads will join in with prodding and poking and to see if the baby will move. But the whole attitude is usually one of playing together. And I think sometimes women will talk to their unborn child and answer themselves as if they are the child. A very early example you could suggest of role reversal, which we normally think of as an adult technique in psychodrama. But we learn how to role reverse from a very, very early age. So yes,
I'm a little
playful
bit
pregnancy.
confused. A little bit confused there. I just want to clarify. So if you're suggesting that play starts for the unborn child before it's born, and we also suggest one of the things about play is an activity that it is outside everyday life. You know, it's a preparation for life. How's an unborn baby going to know that? Because playing is just life, isn't it?
Well, the baby's taking on, first of all, the nuance of the mother's voice. Remember, the womb acts like an amplifier, so the mother's level of voice is much louder to the baby. which is why that's the first sound the baby always looks for after it's born. So the mother's voice is the dominant voice to the baby, and she'll be whispering secrets, telling tales, making funny noises, thinking of descriptions for who this baby might be, all sorts of things. So sometimes the mother's talking in her imagination about the future and what could happen. Sometimes she's talking in reality about, ouch, that's uncomfortable when you kick me so much. So all of that is going on. And children don't differentiate and separate out imagination and reality till well after 7 months old. And even then it's not clear. The borders are very blurred, and they learn through play itself which play is for real and which play is for let's pretend.
Can I just stop you there a second?
Mm-hmm.
I just want a bit of clarity, and maybe some of our viewers do as well. When do you believe that a child recognizes the difference between playing and real life? So when something is not fantasy, when it's reality. At what stage does that normally take place?
Well, you first get an indication round about 6 or 7 months when you play peekaboo with a child. If you try playing peekaboo with a child younger than, they get distressed. They think you've really gone. But past 6 or 7 months, they know that you might be hiding behind your hands, but you're coming back again. So that's the sowing of the seed, really, of imagination. And that will go on developing from then onwards. And sometimes small children will realize something they've said has made an adult laugh.
Yeah.
And when the adult laughs, the child will do the thing again to try and get another laugh, because they realize that something they said that was not quite accurate or an exaggeration. I'll give you an example of one of my grandchildren. We were looking at a picture book, and he delighted in naming all the animals. But it got to a picture of a polar bear, and accidentally, I think the first time, he said it was a cockerel.
Okay.
And I laughed. I laughed in a friendly way, not laughing at
Mocking
him.
way.
And he laughed back and realized that he'd said something to make Grandma laugh. So when we looked at the book again, he deliberately called the polar bear a cockerel and looked at me to see whether I was going to laugh again. So I think we get these little indicators, but children don't really separate out fantasy and reality for years, and often make mistakes when people do something that is for real rather than it just being a joke or pretend. I think I've mentioned before, my own experience as a 4-year-old when going to stay with an uncle, and the first thing he said was, if children don't behave at our house, we cut their heads off. Yes, he actually said this with a completely straight face, a rather dour Scots accent, I remember very clearly, and I was absolutely terrified for the whole of my
He was
stay
just
there.
playing, wasn't he? Was he just playing with you?
He thought it was a joke, but he never corrected that it wasn't for real. So,
well, that's interesting in itself, is that often you'll get at school, for example, if two children are engaged in an activity together and then one, for some reason, gets hurt or doesn't like or enjoy the activity, they might complain of, I don't know, bullying or something else like that. And the other person might just say, well, we're just playing. Where does that line, what's play to one might not be play to another. You gave us that example.
Well, I think
roughhousing, you
real,
can't just go on.
Sorry, but I think play for real is about whether or not another person gets hurt in some way or other. Whether they get physically hurt, whether they get emotionally hurt, whether they get misled like I was on this occasion. Because the feeling of being told that at 4 years old stayed with me for many years. Particularly
Isn't that
as the daughter of the same uncle actually tried to kill me some years later when I was 10 years old.
what, for
Tried
real?
to suffocate me.
Gosh.
So then it really was for real. It wasn't a pretend thing at all.
Were they just playing? Did they not realize they were suffocating you?
She dismissed it as playing, but she actually was out to really wreak harm on me.
Okay. So I'm lucky to
I've
be
never
alive
really puzzled out why, but I
then.
slowly distanced my friendship with them. It's always difficult for children when your parents expect you to be friends with the children of their friends. And you might discover you actually don't like them very much, but of course she's nice, dear. She's your best friend, sort of thing.
It can work the other way round as well, though, can't it? Where you expect to be friends with the friends of your children. Not the friends of your children, the parents of the friends of your children, and you might not get on with them at all. Just going back a bit, because play. I mean, one of the things about play that we've talked about is it separates. Play is fantasy as opposed to reality, and it makes activities that you might engage in real life, in reality, safe. Yeah, isn't that one of the things about play? Is it makes an activity safe, and you can even see that in words like display, for example. So display in terms of if you see animals in the animal kingdom, they might do displays of aggression and so on, but they don't really want to engage in combat with the other animal that they're displaying to. The display, the play that they're engaged with, is to sort of keep things calm. It's like, this is what I'm capable of, but don't mess with
And
me.
sort of stay off my territory.
Yeah, so it's
Or
a
stay away from my
display.
food.
Yeah,
And of course, I think another dimension of all this is when children play in terms of mimicking something in order to get skilled at it. I mean, we found in
right.
Malaysia that even quite young Temiar children would imitate some of the movements of the shaman. They would also imitate some of the dancing when people went into trance and lost control. So they were actually practicing in play something that later they would do as an older person, as an adult, which has a different dimension to it by playing to explore something new, something different, to explore a story or a poem, for example. So you've got variance in play, because the first is mimicry, but you need an imagination to mimic, don't you? You need a recall of what the shaman did the night before in the trancing session.
So in terms of play, I mean, not all play is positive, right? I mean,
No,
play
play can turn
exists,
really mean and nasty, but
and
then do you still call it
it
play?
exists within there's rules generally within play. Even if you don't know the rules, when you're engaged in play, there are certain invisible rules or boundaries that you don't cross over. So how is it that some forms of play can start off fun, but then they go dangerous, they go nasty, they go mean? Uh, what's happening in that process for play, joyful, lovely, creative,
Well,
imaginative?
I think,
Suddenly it's dangerous.
yes, I think personally that at some point, when free play goes to extremes, adults need to put borders and say that that's gone far enough. If you do more of that, so and so will get hurt, or such and such will get broken.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing for children to say free play in a piece of woodland near home and discover all sorts of things. But it's quite another thing for a child to sit down under one of the trees and pull a spider to pieces. So
But
at some point
hasn't
in free
everybody
play,
done that? Hasn't every child at some point in their
no, not
life?
every child, but a lot of children will squash a
I'm
beetle
sure
or
I
jump
did.
on a
I love
frog or...
animals. Yeah.
Sorry?
But
I didn't hear you.
I mean, I'm peaceful. I'm a vegetarian, but I'm sure as a kid, I mean, I can't remember specifically, but I'm sure as a kid, I tortured a spider or an ant or other insects. Because you don't hear a spider scream or so. I mean, do you know that you're causing pain, causing distress to this insect? You might just be playing with it.
Well, if an adult doesn't impose a border or a limit or shrugs something off, then the child doesn't know that they've gone beyond acceptable behaviour.
Normalized.
And therefore they might get pleasure from repeating whatever it was that they did. So whether a child is playing ostensibly on their own, and young children should not be left on their own to play anyway because of safety. At some point, an adult is there to impose a limit and to explain why they're posing that limit. Not just to say stop. Here's the iPad, but to actually explain that degrees of playing are all very well, but there's a point when you have to stop.
Yes, and I mean, maybe, I don't know if it's the media or there was a lot of extreme play, but particularly we see these sort of new kinds of game shows, don't we, where you got to survive, you got to battle against other people, and winning means hurting people, beating them in some way. I mean, that's
Yes, I have
that's
to
not
ask
fun. That's not
why.
really creative, and
Why are these televised games always competitive and never collaborative? I think we found when we were working with the Temias that indeed they were collaborative rather than competitive. And as we've said before, every village can raise a child. So it takes working together in the best interests of a child or children or many children to be able to rear them and take care and nurture them. So often we can trace it all back to the nurture. Now, in neurodramatic play, not only do we talk about nurture, we also talk about nesting. Nesting is the safe container. And rather like we talked about boxes in the last podcast, the idea that the box, the cradle, the cot can be a container for the child and they will feel safe. The same as being wrapped up in a blanket. Even if you're in a warm costume, a baby grow type of costume, if you're wrapped up in a shawl or if you're held in mother's arms, you are contained and held. You are safe. That's where the concept of nesting in NDP comes from.
so I'm not sure what happened. I think our internet connection was lost earlier. We'll see how it goes, but we'll continue.
So we'll carry on.
Yes. Play. Well, yeah, I kind of lost my thread there, so I'll edit this bit out. But
Yes, I've
play.
been linking play very much with the Temia idea of collaboration, that it takes a whole village to raise a child. We all work together to help each other. Families help each other. They don't compete with each other for the best baby. You never ever heard mothers saying, "Oh, little John has walked today," inferring that John has walked faster and sooner than another mother's child. You just don't hear that type of conversation. So they support and they encourage each other. And particularly I noticed if mothers were a bit down or overtired or had a wakeful baby, other mothers would step in and help. And it wasn't unusual for another mother to breastfeed a baby if the baby's own mother actually just needed to sleep. So
Indeed.
this emphasis on collaboration in play and how we can emphasize collaborative play. So rather than competing who can keep a balloon in the air longer than anybody else, we can collaborate and the whole group can try to keep a balloon in the air and not let it touch the ground. That's the essential difference about working together as a group rather than striving as an individual.
One of the
And we
things
can learn that in play.
One of the things I've been thinking about in our conversations, because I think the line often between play and reality, between fantasy and reality, is often blurred. And this idea that we briefly mentioned earlier in terms of the word display and how that relates to play, we've talked about one, but I'm also thinking, like, right now I'm looking at a display. This LCD screen is a display. And so you can use the word display relating to play in several ways. We've talked about some already, but specifically, I just want to run this by you. I don't know if this is true or not, but could you regard play, like thinking of this square that we're both in right now, okay? It's bounded, right? It's we can't
limits.
do for our viewers anything outside of this screen. So it's bounded in that way. And can we say the same about play in itself, is that play provides us with a bounded structure to engage in pretend, trying out,
Curiosity,
and so on, separate from real life.
Exploration and discovery.
And then once
Absolutely.
we've stopped playing,
That's
we've
an
stopped
absolutely
out of
play
this, we've stepped out of
statement.
this sort of display, this
That
bound
we need those
that we've
borders.
put
We need the
ourselves in, is
circle or the
outside
square
of the
round us, within which we can test, develop, and try out. Sometimes it's repetitive play, like rhythmic play and clapping games and songs. Sometimes it's exploratory play, like using the finger paint, shaving foam, the soil outside in the garden and pouring water into it, and then realize that maybe planting something would be a little more productive. The whole time, early childhood is about exploring. By exploring, we discover. And sometimes we discover something that everybody else has, that if you mix all the finger paints together, it turns brown. But sometimes we discover something else, something new that somebody hasn't discovered before, that you can put paints side by side and not spill them into each other and make a rainbow. So the importance within that frame that you describe, Andy, of the square, or it could be the triangle, or it could be a circle, is that it needs time and space to explore, to find out, because we know people learn more adequately and in depth if they personally explore something rather than being told something. And I
It's
think
about
that's very,
action.
very important. It's fundamental to play.
So play is about action as opposed to just talking about something.
Indeed.
But, so saying that again, a bit of devil's advocate in me, you can have a playful conversation.
I mean, that's interesting because sometimes people will say, oh, it's just a playful, it's a playful idea, inferring we're not going too deeply. But really, play takes you into the depths of something, that through play, you feel safe enough to perhaps be more exposing and sharing of personal material than you would usually.
So it could be the word play could be used as a dismissive almost sort of,
Well,
yes,
yes, the other
it's
extreme,
just
stop
playful.
playing about, get down to some real work.
Yeah, it's just superficial what you're doing. It's just
Yes.
play.
You're not taking this seriously. You're supposed to be doing work, not play, is the message. So it's no wonder children get confused when on the one hand they are encouraged to play and discover, and then suddenly there becomes a limit and they're not allowed to anymore.
Hmm.
This is often,
Yeah.
I find, said by parents when children play with their food.
Okay. That's me.
That when you're eating your dinner, you
Stop
eat your
playing
dinner,
with your
you don't play with it.
food.
We've all
It's
heard that
also a
one.
Temiar. It's also a Temiar thing as well, the Temiar would suggest, certainly from my experience, that your food is there, it's to be eaten, it's not to be played with, and you don't engage in games or playful activities with food. I mean, it's a serious thing, eating your food, isn't it, in Temiar society? And for
Particularly
me as well,
on,
as much as I love playing, I'm often telling my children, well, not often, but I do tell my children, stop playing with your food, eat it. That's not
and
to
I
say
think
that I
food,
won't. Go on, carry on.
the seriousness of food for the Temia was especially during ritual occasions, when we all had the special meal after somebody had died, for example. That was a very serious eating occasion.
Yes. Okay. So conscious of time, conscious of a not very good internet connection that we have today. So before we finish, something we've sort of slightly covered on a few of the pods, but we haven't tackled it directly, I think, is the dangers of play or dangerous play. So when we're not talking about a rehearsal for life, but engaged in play that is negative, is harmful, and so on, how can we mitigate that? And why do you think there is such a thing as dangerous play?
It's interesting because I remember there being a new production of Shakespeare's play Othello, and not in the UK. I won't identify the country. And when it gets to the point of Othello attacking his wife Desdemona and finally strangling her, on one particular night, the actor playing Othello just lost the plot and started to strangle her for real, rather
God.
than simulating it as an actor.
Hmm.
And the company had to stop the production. They pulled the curtain down and actually had to stop because this woman was about to be really strangled. Completely bruised all round her neck. Now, I was discussing this performance with some fellow theatre friends,
Hmm.
and one man said, "Wasn't that performance amazing?" And I said, "Hang on a minute." He said, No, you've got to admit the talent of that man, that he really went for it. You've got to admire." And I was so shocked, but I got a clue about when play becomes for real, it can be dangerous. When we, particularly as an actor, when we step over that mark, that we are simulating, we are playing, as Stanislavski said, as if. So we're looking as if we're strangling Desdemona, as if we really are, but we know how to simulate it.
But that's very interesting, because what you're almost saying is that when play becomes dangerous, it's no longer play. They've lost control.
Play becomes dangerous when it becomes for real, quite simply. And if children haven't been through a process of limits being placed on play, really from the word go, I mean, it's even when the tiny baby starts to pull mum's hair, and mum, we hope, will say, "Ow, ow," and the baby learns there's a limit there. Especially if it's followed by mum stroking the baby, that this is the way to touch me. I don't think you can start too early by putting limits on play, or
Some
putting limits on any
boundaries.
communication.
I think that's great. That's helped me, certainly. That often, I don't know, dangerous play is often, I don't know, I want to say the word misdiagnosed, but I know that's wrong. Misinterpreted, misrepresented, because it's no longer play. As you said, you've stepped out of the rules. It's like breaking the rules of any game. You're no longer involved in that game. You're no longer playing. You've lost control. You're losing. So you've I don't know, lost your temper or something like that. So
But this is
when
where the play and the
it's no longer
arts,
play, is it? Yeah.
and the arts have this regulatory function of being able to absorb any feelings we might have without turning them into reality. I've never said that before.
Regulation.
I'm quite proud of it.
Good. Well, I think that's a good place to end this pod. Let
Okay, so
you
keep playing.
ruminate more
Don't
on
forget.
this new idea. And yes, don't forget to keep on playing. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. If you've enjoyed this episode, apologies if the connection hasn't been too bad or too good. We'll try and make improvements. We keep growing, but we can grow more with your support. If you've enjoyed it, give us a like and subscribe
And
to the
just like
channel. That
Puck
helps
says,
us grow.
yes. And Puck says in Midsummer Night's Dream, don't be too cross with us. We'll try better tomorrow.
Good old Puck. Don't forget to play. See you later.
Okay, don't forget to play.